Class 12 English. Going Places Question and Answers Part 2. 11. How can you tell that Jhansi is the voice of reason in the story Going Places? Ans. Jhansi is really the voice of reason in the story. It is she who warns Sophie not to dream of big things in her life. She asks her to be practical. She reminds her of the poor condition of her house. It is all because of her wisdom that she knows her limits as a member of middle-class family and never tries to cross them. 12. What was Sophie's father's reaction to her story regarding her meeting with Danny Casey? Why does not her father believe Sophie? Ans. Sophie's father did not believe the news of Sophie's meeting with Danny Casey. He considered it to be another of her wild stories. He looked at Sophie with hatred. He ignored her and went on to discuss football and footballer. 13. How did Sophie come to know that her dad was not at home? Why was she glad to know it? Ans. Sophie came to know that her father was not at home when she passed by the pub. She saw her father's bicycle propped against the wall of the pub. She was glad because she would not have to see her father when she reached home disappointed. 14. What kind of personality does Sophie's brother have? Ans. Jeff is a reserved sort of person. He is a motor mechanic under training. He is a hard worker. He is great friend of Danny Casey. He has the colored photograph of Irish footballer on his bedroom wall. He is not a daydreamer like his sister. Perhaps he knows his and his family limitations better than her. He speaks little but listens to his sister's wild stories. 15. Why did Sophie choose to walk by the canal? What did she do there? Ans. Sophie chose to walk by the canal along a sheltered path. She preferred it because the place was at a distance from the bustling city. She knew the place since childhood where there was an elm tree with a bench beneath, ideally suitable for lovers. Sitting there on the bench, Sophie dreamt of her hero, Danny Casey undisturbed. 16. What is the incongruous about the delicate bow which fastened the apron strings of Sophie's mother? Ans. Sophie's mother is an aged one with the burden of economic poverty. She loses her bodily charmness with a bent body. Returning from school, Sophie notices her mother's back over the sink. She is surprised to see the unmatching of the delicate bow, fastened her mother's apron strings and the bent back. 17. How does Danny Casey look like? Ans. Danny Casey, a great promising footballer, is an Irish prodigy. In Sophie's fantasy, the young boy has green and gentle eyes like the eyes of gazelle. His nose is freckled, turning upwards slightly towards forehead. His teeth are with gaps between. He smiles shyly. After all, he is as tall as Sophie. 18. Why does Sophie choose her brother to tell about her meeting with Danny Casey in arcade? Ans. Sophie is a school-going girl with some eccentricity. She is a self-possessed girl without trust on anybody, even her friend Jhansi. She believes that if there is anybody to share her secret first, he is her brother Jeff, nobody else. So, chooses him to tell about her meeting with Danny Casey. 19. Which country did Danny Casey play football for? Ans. Danny Casey play football for Ireland. 20. Why didn't Sophie want Jhansi to know about her story with Danny Casey? Ans. Sophie wanted to keep her story a secret and confided in Jeff. She knew if Jhansi came to know about it, then it would spread in the entire neighborhood. There was also the risk of her life being exposed.